Good afternoon and welcome to the National Landlord Investment Show. Today I'm absolutely delighted to have Vanessa Warwick, who is co-founder of Property Tribes. Nick and Vanessa, who are husband and wife team, actually launched Property Tribes almost 12 years to the day. So if for anybody, which I'm sure everyone on our platform have been to our shows, have not aren't familiar with Nick and Vanessa and Property Tribes, I really would urge you to do so. So Vanessa, welcome this afternoon. And I just, you and I were having a discussion and we were sort of thinking about sort of putting our landlord heads on, and, you come up with 6 things that you think is really, really important that landlords should be doing at this moment in time. But firstly, before we delve into those 6 really essential things, tell me a little bit about Property Tribes, please, Vanessa.
Well, as you say, it was formed almost to the day 12 years ago. It was started by myself and my husband. We're full-time residential landlords. And at the time, we couldn't find anywhere where we could have robust and professional debate on the social web. I mean, forums in those days were really in their infancy. I have always regarded being a landlord as a professional thing. And I went to my husband, Nick, one day and said, Nick, I just can't find anywhere where I can have reasonable, robust, healthy debate about landlord issues, because I'm, very hungry for information. I want to learn and grow. Can you help me? And he said, well, okay, I'll put you up a free forum software and just invite your friends along there, and then you can chat to your heart's content. And that's what he did. And we chose the name Property Tribes because it's based on people exist in tribes. There's cat lover tribes, there's fishing tribes, there's mountaineering tribes, and you might be a member of many different tribes, but there is definitely a property tribe. And then you have all your sub niches like buy-to-let, HMOs, commercial, holiday lets, etc. So we set it up. I invited 30 of my property friends along. We got chatting, and then it just grew and grew and grew, and that's the rest is now history. And I think we're now approaching 70,000 registered users.
That's amazing. I mean, so you and I have known each other now, I think probably knocking on 10 years. So, and actually Property Tribes as well, you were one of the first people we actually came to for advice when we were starting out our husband and wife venture, which is obviously the show. So, what I love about Property Tribes is that it informs you of everything. There's daily news that comes up. It covers everything, as you say, that you need in your toolbox for a landlord. But as you said, the most important thing, you and I have touched on this many times, that being a landlord can be quite a lonely journey, and often you're working alone. So I love going on there, and I love seeing the threads. I love the way that people interact, and if someone's got a problem, which there's always many problems that need to be solved, then that community really does come together. So, congratulations on your 12 years, and we're delighted to have you with us as always today. So shall we start with your 6 things that landlords should be doing in 2021? Now, more robust tenant referencing, Vanessa.
Yes, that is my number 1. It's always been absolutely vital to reference your tenants. The best way to never experience a bad tenant is never to let one step over the threshold of your rental property in the first place. So, you mentioned about what Property Tribes does. It's very much about putting landlords into prevention mode, rather than waiting for something to go wrong and then trying to cure it, because cure in property is a lot more expensive, a lot more heartache. And in the case of getting a bad tenant, then you could be waiting actually almost up to 18 months to get possession of your property due to the current eviction ban. So yes, really robust tenant referencing is more important now than ever before, because we are almost certainly going to experience an economic fallout, not only from obviously COVID-19, multiple lockdowns, but also through Brexit as well. There is going to be some economic resets going on. So my number 1 tip is to really ramp up your tenant referencing. And there's various things that you can do to protect yourself. And the first thing is to become like a digital landlord and use open banking. So that's now available via tenant referencing sites like Cubic Lease, for instance. And what open banking is what it says. It means that these referencing services have direct access to a tenant's bank account, and they can get a snapshot of their financial position on that day. Now, this is really important and powerful because normal referencing tends to have a time lag involved with it. But because it's digital, it's real time. So it's very, very accurate reference. So number one, use tenant referencing with open banking. My second thing would be to get rent guarantee insurance. It's actually a bit of a no-brainer in my opinion, and I have it for all of our investment properties. And this pays the rent if the tenant goes into more than 2 months rent arrears, and it also covers the costs of the eviction process. And you know, it's costing between £250 and £350 a year now, because it's gone up significantly because of COVID-19, but it's still money well spent. And finally, ask your tenant for a home owning guarantor, and that gives you an extra level of redress if the tenant stops paying the rent, because the guarantor essentially agrees to pay the rent if the tenant doesn't. So those would be my 3 things to really ramp up your tenant referencing process and minimize the risk of getting a bad tenant.
Okay, great. So that's 3 really good tips there. So open banking, rent guarantee, and guarantor. So that's the 3 main tips that you've got there, 3 things that landlords should be doing in regards to referencing. Okay, fantastic. Now, second one, which I know is something that you hold dear to your heart because you love them, and you love being by the sea, and it's buying a holiday let. What should landlords be doing this year?
Well, I definitely think landlords should be looking at holiday lets if they have a good, solid, robust, cash flowing portfolio of single occupancy buy-to-lets. A lot of advantages to holiday lets. They are not subject to the onerous Section 24 taxation regime. And they are coming into a golden era now, I believe, because COVID-19 and you know, all the lockdowns and the fear surrounding traveling and going into places where there's lots of people, I think it is going to diminish the number of people that want to holiday abroad for the foreseeable future. So I really do think that holiday lets are going to have a golden era now, where people are going to rediscover the joys of our wonderful coastline. And you know, we're so lucky in this country. We have got the most incredible coastlines, everything from, you know, rugged cliffs in Scotland down to beautiful you know, 7 miles of golden sandy beach, which is where, you know, for example, Camber Sands, as you know, where we've got one of our holiday lets. So I think, you know, that they're really great to have. They're a different animal to a standard buy-to-let, and they're often really good in terms of their location. I'm talking about coastal holiday lets specifically. I've always found that coastal property does, you know, very well capital appreciation wise, if not just being robust when there's a downturn. There is only a limited amount of coastline in this country. Nobody's making any more. In fact, it could be said that it's actually starting to diminish. So, you know, where there's scarcity, there's value. And I think it's really lovely to branch out into holiday lets. And you know, it's a different thing completely because it's guests instead of tenants, and you're really helping people enjoy their holiday. And we've got this massive rise of the staycation, which is a trend that we've seen probably for about the last 3 to 5 years, but it's really, really ramping up further. And that is people looking to take long weekend breaks. So all of this you can tap into with a really good quality holiday let. I would recommend being close to a good beach because that attracts the huge family market. And I would recommend that you buy a holiday let within a maximum of a 2-hour drive from a major population density, because essentially people want to leave work at 6 o'clock on a Friday evening. They want to be sitting on their decking having a glass of wine by 8 o'clock at the latest. So if you get a holiday let that meets those criteria and you do it to an extremely high standard, I'm very certain that you would enjoy a great deal of occupancy. And a lot of people think holiday lets are just good for the summer. They're not. This staycation trend has seen bookings literally throughout the year. And even in January and February and September, October, November, which are typically what you would call the low season, I will still get 2 to 3 weekends booked a month. So the cash flow can be very good. And typically what you get for 1 week for a holiday let during high season is what you would typically get for 1 month of a single occupancy buy to let. So you can do the maths on that.
Yeah, no, fantastic. No, I think, I certainly, relate to that. I think the first time last year, we went down to the coast for a week, down to Cornwall, and it was absolutely beautiful. And, I think many people, that will be the way it's going to be for some time. So, if you can provide great quality accommodation, people are enjoying it, and you're going to make a great profit, then it's an absolute no-brainer. Just a quick question on that as well. In terms of the letting side, Vanessa, would you recommend to sort of do that yourself, or would you always go through an agent, or a bit of both?
Well, we have done it through an agent, and we're very fortunate to have good agents. Obviously, you need the agent to do the marketing, take the bookings, take the payments, give the guests the terms and conditions, check them in, check them out, that kind of thing. And you also need a really, really good cleaning company, because one of the number one things about holiday lets is that they have to be absolutely spotless. They have to look like nobody has ever set foot in them before. So you need very high levels of cleaning. So in answer to your question, no, I don't manage them myself. I have booking agents and I have cleaners, and obviously they have a whole raft of support services around them, such as handymen and gas engineers to come and do the gas safety check and all that good stuff. But again, if you get it right, the income is so great that you can quite happily pay certainly for these services. And the good thing is with holiday lets is you don't get the bills unless you've had guests. Yeah. So actually when the bills start to come in, it means you've got bookings. So I don't mind those bills coming in for a holiday lets.
No, absolutely. That's great advice. So no, that's fantastic. I mean, it might be quite nice to maybe put a little thread on Property Tribes about maybe sort of great buy-to-let investment areas, around the coastal lines. If you've got any of that information to share on the site, that'd be amazing. Okay, now that brings us on to our third thing that landlords should be doing is ride the Freeport waves. What are we talking about?
Well, this is very exciting because the government have put out for tender 10 Freeports around the UK, and it's going to close in March, and they are going to make their decision shortly after that. But what Freeports they are enterprise zones where the normal customs, taxes, tariffs don't apply. So they are free ports. And essentially they encourage a lot of transactions, manufacturing, and so on and so forth. Now, this really, chimes with looking for areas where there's going to be high tenant demand. And just as a for instance, one of the ports that has applied to become a free port is what's called Thames Freeport, which is a combination of London Gateway and Tilbury Port. They've applied, and they've said in their submission that they expect that the free port status will create 25,000 jobs in the area. So these free ports are part of the government's post-Brexit economic recovery plan, if you like. And they're very exciting because you want to get in early to areas where there's a lot of new infrastructure, new investment, new communications going in. The free ports all meet that criteria. Now, obviously, we don't know which ones they are, but I've got a little list on my computer just to quickly give you the heads up on this, so you can check it out. So in the northeast, it's the Tees Valley and the Port of Tyne. In the northwest, it's the Peel combined Freeport and Carlisle and Borderlines combined Freeport. In the east, it's called Freeport East, and it's a bid by Felixstowe and Harwich. In the southeast, you've got what they're calling the Global Trade and Innovation Zone, the GTI Zone Freeport, and that's around Dover. And then you've got the Thames Freeport, which I mentioned, which is London Gateway and Tilbury, and actually also Dagenham, which is important for the Ford factory there. In the southwest, you've got the Bristol Freeport Zone and Exeter Airport Freeport. And that's interesting because airports can also be in a Freeport zone. Yorkshire and Humber is the Doncaster and Sheffield airports and Humber Port. The central zone is East Midlands Airport, so another airport there. Wales, Milford Haven, and Scotland, Cromarty Firth. So those are all of the ones that have so far submitted to become a Freeport. And I think there's 14 of them, and 10 of them will get that status. So actually, you could have a little bit of a gamble on that one, couldn't you? Because you stand a good chance of finding a place that's going to become a Freeport. So that Freeports are really, really good news for our economy, and by default, that will be good news for landlords.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's very, very good information there, guys. And hopefully, there'll be some way of sharing that again with that list. So thank you for that, Vanessa. But yeah, absolutely. It's we definitely always need more housing in this country. And I think, that seems like a very, very good way of doing that. So great news. So, okay. So the fourth thing, we've got quality, not quantity.
Yes, Tracey, you're just to reiterate about, tenant demand, that does again chime back to what we were saying about tenant referencing, because a lot of people are going to be made redundant this year. And a lot of people are unfortunately going to find that they don't have a job to go back to at the end of furlough, and a lot of people are going to go on to benefits. So when you're looking at tenant demand, you want to see employment in the area and people going into really, strong and robust jobs like those that will be created around the Freeports. So there's a nice actual little link between two of the things that we've discussed already. But to answer your question, my mantra has always been quality, not quantity. And this is born out of 18 years experience and having been through the financial correction of 2008. And I found that all our stock in the southeast and London performed relatively well during that period, whereas some of our stock up in the north did not perform so well. And I've always found that good quality properties in good areas with high tenant demand, they're far less subject to economic curveballs. And not only that, they recover more quickly afterwards. And, for instance, I've got a house in Ashton-under-Lyne in Manchester, a 4-bed house, which I paid 180,000 for about 10 or 11 years ago. That actually went quite significantly down in value in around the 2008 period. And even to this day, it's probably only worth about 210, 220,000 on a good day. So it hasn't capital appreciated very well. Unfortunately, it seems to have been a magnet to rather poor quality tenants. Whereas in London, for instance, I bought a 1-bed flat in near Hanbury in Islington in 2004. It was my very first acquisition. It's in a lovely development with a gated development with parking in a very good location close to transport links. I paid 147,500 for that property, and the one next door has recently sold for 340,000. Yeah. So it's done incredibly well, but more importantly, it's never been empty. I've had really good quality young professional tenants in there. And going forwards, my advice is to buy the best property that you can with your budget in the best possible area, and really focus on quality, because I think a lot of people with poor quality properties, they're actually the landlords that have really suffered during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown fallout. So I think we've got to be a lot more risk averse going forward, because the risks of COVID have been massively amplified, and we all need to really think about risk mitigation. And one of my risk mitigation strategies would be quality, not quantity.
Yeah, that, you know, makes perfect sense. And actually we can all go down that road sometimes if there's a budget that you've got in place to think, let's buy up as much as we can, you know, with the money that we've got. But what you're saying is, you know, invaluable. So yeah, that's great advice. Thanks, Vanessa. So that brings me along nicely to create a strong cash pot.
Yes, again, I think the whole COVID-19 economic fallout has exposed weak business models, people running on very slim margins, and that's always dangerous. But you've got to have a really good, strong month-on-month net cash flow, because that protects you from all of these economic curveballs and headwinds, of which we've had more in the last 5 years than in my previous landlord existence. And also, you know, I think it's very important that you have a cash buffer, because cash is king. And right now we are going into a very fast moving, very volatile market. And there's going to be increased risks, but there's also going to be increased opportunities. And I think if you can build up a cash buffer, a good pot, and sit on it, and if you need to delve into it to protect your business, then you've got that money. It gives you peace of mind. You can sleep at night. None of us got into property to lie awake at night fretting about money. I know I certainly didn't. And I've had my fair share of doing that. I'll tell you that. In the early days, when we expanded very quickly, we had a few hairy moments, and I learnt my lesson from that. So have this cash pot, this buffer, makes you feel comfortable, puts you in a very good position should opportunity arise. And I do believe there's going to be significant opportunity for landlords in the kind of second, third and fourth quarter of 2021 and beyond. So if you're looking to expand, you know, bide your time and wait for those opportunities to start to appear, because I'm sure that they will. But certainly have that cash buffer, because we are not out of the woods yet. There is more economic fallout to come, and we all do need to make sure that we can hold on to what we've got. And I think it's very important that landlords recognise what the challenges are still to come.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. I think certainly, you know, this year, the last year has you know, taught many people, or sort of opened our eyes a lot wider to, you know, when things are great, they're great, but when they can go wrong, they can go very badly wrong. So, you know, and yeah, no one needs any more stress at the moment. So I think you're absolutely right. Do everything you can, protect yourself, and, you know, be ready for an opportunity, and, you know, when they do come along, because I think you're right, they will do, without doubt. So that brings me on nicely to your final thing. Well, it won't be your final thing, but it's your sixth thing for now that landlords should be doing this year. So reviewing their portfolios. What do you think they should be doing with their portfolios?
Well, that kind of follows on nicely from what we've just been saying, Tracy, because you have to know your financial position. If you don't, that in itself is a massive risk. So I'm a big advocate of using digital tools. Indeed, Nick and I have been since actually, I don't know, it must be 15, 20 years now that we've been interested in the digitalisation of the property sector. There are so many benefits to using digital tools, and there's plenty of really fantastic tools out there. And this software can help you understand your exact position, your monthly net cash flow, which we talked about, how important it is to know that, your net equity. You could have capital raising opportunities that you could use to build up your cash pot, for example. So yeah, really review your portfolio. I've written an article recently about 5 lessons to be learned from sailing, and one of those things is that when you're sailing, you're constantly monitoring the boat and trimming it, trimming the sails, trimming different parts of the boat to ensure that it's moving most efficiently through the water, with them, to really optimize your free energy of the wind. And this is the same for a portfolio. You need to be regularly trimming your portfolio sails, making sure that it's performing properly, identifying badly performing properties. Maybe there is one property in your portfolio that could bring your entire property business down. You need to identify that property and think of maybe exiting from it and using the money to buy something that's going to serve you better. Now, I'll be very honest here. We're very keen on digital tools, and so much so that when one came along that absolutely blew the doors off everything else, my husband Nick became a minor shareholder because he believed in it so much, and he's also sitting on the advisory board, and that is the software called Lendlord.
Yeah.
So we feel so strongly about digitization for landlords that Nick's actually become an investor in one of these platforms. So yes, there's good free tools out there like Lendlord that give you the key performance metrics of your portfolio, let you know where you are, identify opportunities for you, identify badly performing properties for you. Now, this software is free to use, so what's not to love about that? Take advantage of it. And one thing that we're going to see in the future is that landlords that are operating in a digital format are going to start getting access to better products and services, because they are able to prove from their digital profiles that they've created and kept going, that they've got all their data there for any third-party sourcer to service to be able to see. So for instance, Lendlord has just launched its own bridging product, and it's kind of using technology to match a product to a person's profile. So the person that's already input their entire portfolio into Lendlord can apply through Lendlord. It's all perfectly secure and private. They can apply for bridging lending, and the profile will be read, and they will be given a rate based on their circumstances. Yeah. So this is now getting into the realms of really bespoke underwriting, where you are rewarded for operating in a digital format with better rates, better products, better services. And this is the way that the sector is going. And one of the good things about COVID is that it showed that working in a digital format cannot be affected by a pandemic or a lockdown. And certainly landlords that were using digital products during the pandemic will have fared a lot better than those that are still in analog mode. Mm-hmm. So that's my final point, Tracey, to think about becoming a digital landlord. Learn the lessons that COVID has taught us about not working in the cloud and working in an analog fashion, and how your business can literally be stopped overnight. Whereas if you're actually in the digital format in the cloud, you can work anywhere in the world, any time of the day or night. you know, as long as you've got access to the internet and you've got a device to access it. So this is a really important lesson to learn. And some of the things that we've seen come through during COVID are digital viewings. So nobody's saying that somebody should take a property on a digital viewing alone, but it can be a filter to stop you wasting your time to go out and see people that actually don't want the property. Things like digital keys, you can allow access to a tradesman if the property's empty, so you don't need to go and meet them or interact with anybody when there's a lockdown. And things again like, you know, digital tenant referencing, where the usual channels are really kind of sluggish and bunged up. You know, you've got things like open banking to give you an instant snapshot. So all of this is coming together into what I would call a digital ecosystem. And it would be very advised for all landlords to start thinking about being a digital landlord going forwards, because it's greatly going to mitigate your risk, make your life a lot easier, reduce the hassle, and just generally have a much happier and simpler landlord life.
Yeah. If you haven't watched the landlord seminar, guys, you can go back into the platform, select to landlord to your agenda, which is 11:45 to 12:15. That's in seminar room 4. And actually, Avaram is actually giving a really, really good display of how that works and how that can enhance you as a landlord investor. So if you haven't done so already, guys, go back to seminar room 4, add the landlord seminar to your agenda, and you can watch that, you know, at any time that you want to over the next couple of days. So I just wanted to get that in there as well, Vanessa. So no, that's great. Well, it's been brilliant information today. It's certainly 6 very, very key things that landlords should be doing. A wealth of knowledge and advice, as you say, over 18 years you've been doing this, and I commend you and Nick for all of your hard work actually in the property sector. And you know, it's about keeping all the good people growing together and getting out. So, you know, sometimes we need to get rid of the ones that are giving us a bad name. So, you know, we should be celebrating the fact that we are a business, you know, landlords are a business, and we should be running our business as effectively as we possibly can. So those 6 things that you have given us today, I think will certainly enable, you know, and be very, very helpful, insightful to everybody. What I'd like you to do, Vanessa, is just give me your web address. So if people aren't familiar, then they can obviously join up and become members. It's free of charge. So could you just repeat the website address for me?
Yeah, of course. And thank you for your kind words. Yes, it's propertytribes.com. And may I just add, Tracey, that the thing about Property Tribes is it's community generated intel. So it's thousands of people sharing knowledge, advice, support, solutions to problems. And that's why it's such a healthy place to be, because you can use other landlords' hindsight as your foresight. And our whole, you know, kind of ethos at Property Tribes is based on what we say: none of us is as smart as all of us. So tap into the hive mind, because that's what you're doing at the Landlord in Investment Show as well. You're tapping into a hive mind of knowledge, and that's what you can do at propertytribes.com and other forums as well. So they're really, really useful for landlords that want to learn and grow, solve problems, get advice and support. And, you know, Tracey, you and I always say landlords do tend to operate a little bit in isolation, that there's no need when we've got resources out there that can, you know, help landlords get answers to questions and help solve problems. Nobody needs to struggle in silence. You know, just go on to Property Tribes, post what your issue is, and you'll get loads of helpful responses to help you solve it. And I don't think we've ever come across a problem on PT that somebody didn't have an answer to. So I hope to welcome lots of new members to Property Tribes as a result of this webinar.
No, 100%. And I think there's no time like now when we've all got a little bit more time on our hands. You know, at the end of the day, it's this is the time to use, you know, get all your ducks in a row and get to as many communities as you possibly can. So thank you so much for today, Vanessa. It's been really amazing, and 6 very, very great things, advice pieces there that landlords should definitely be doing. And you know, we don't know when we're going to get back to our live shows, but this, you know, this has certainly pushed us into a digital a digital format, which I never thought would ever be the case. But, you know, we're learning as we're going along as well. So, you know, thanks very much for taking part in today's interview. It's been great.
Oh, well, it's a pleasure, and thank you to everybody that joined us on this interview, and I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their Super Show experience.
Thanks, Vanessa. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.